Are you a human? If you haven't taken the quiz yet, you can still take it now. And I'll share the QR code maybe a little later. So, what we're going to discuss today is about what's going on when we feel held back in our life. Like you have an old dream or true purpose deep inside of you, and you might not even know what it looks like. And you're feeling like it's not happening. Something's pulling you back constantly. So that's what we're discussing. And the question of are you a human is actually an interesting question today, because there's no conversation I have today that doesn't mention AI. Like literally every conversation that we have is about a bot, AI, or computers, or softwares, or large language, or machine learning, all that stuff. So, another question for you. Hopefully, an AI would not have to say that. Have you ever experienced an event in your life that is still having some kind of effect on you? And when I say some kind of effect, I imply some kind of negative effect, like it's pulling you back. It's constantly there. But you might not even be thinking about it. What it could look like is, do you hold grudge on something that has been happening maybe a long time ago, or you tend to hold grudge when people do this or do that to you? That's the question. So if you are watching this on the live, you can raise your hand by yourself on front of the screen, or you can come into the Google Meet and get a gift at the end of this workshop. If you have any questions, I believe I should be able to see the comments if you put comments into your chat. So I'm just going to open my comments so I can see those. And here's another question. Do you feel guilt? Do you feel resentment? And then how long has it been? Do you keep recalling painful memories and you can't find a way to brush them off? How long has it been? So for me, it was literally decades. I hope it's not that for you, but that's what I'm here to help. And the first reflection is around what is actually happening. Why do we feel stuck? Why are we pulled back systematically when we have a new project or an old dream that we want to achieve, and there's this energy, this pain in your body that's just not helping you go through to it, not reaching it. Would this have to do anything with trauma by any chance? So we're going to dig a little bit into that, but I'm going to give a bigger context, because trauma just says, oh, I'm broken and I can't do anything about it. There's nothing further from the truth. But I don't want to focus on trauma. I want to focus on the human experience. So this is the last time I focus on trauma. Trauma has consequences in our life. So when you look at the ACEs, are the adverse childhood experiences, how they're called. And this slide just shows some of the impacts that we see in adults when people have experienced some of these adverse events in their life. And first, there's a high prevalence of adverse childhood experiences. A lot of people, up to 12.5% in this study, have reported more than 4 ACE in their past, but 50% report at least one. So it could have been violence in the house, it could have been a harsh environment, could have been bullying, could have been a number of different things. And you can look at the details if you're interested. Do a little search on ACE and you'll find tons of references out there. What it also does here in the middle of the slide is it increases risks of disease later in life when you're an adult. And adults that have experienced more than 4 ACEs show likelihood of cardiovascular disease. Somebody is joining. Hold on. Yes. Hello. So I'm going to ask you to stay on mute so that we can just continue the call. And welcome. Thank you for joining. Oh, gosh, what did I just do? Okay. There you go. All right, so I'm trying to get my slides back. All good. It has also been shown to increase autoimmune disease. So on the right-hand side, you see the actual economic and societal cost of ACEs, of adverse childhood experiences in life. And those related health consequences cost more than $14 trillion annually. And that was a few years back, that study. So it is really significant. But the bottom line is, in your life today, do you have some of these diseases? Do you have some of these feeling of being pulled back all the time? And these might be related to ACE. So even if I'm focusing still a little bit on trauma, I'm not going to linger too much on that. But the other reflection I have from my own experience as someone who had significant adverse experiences in my childhood, the question here is, would you recognize it? If you see a group of kids in a schoolyard or coming back from school, you look at their faces, would you see it? Now, would you see it if you see a leader in front of 200 people talking to a crowd? Would you see it? Or would you just imagine that it's not there? The answer is you would not see it. It's like invisible disability. Having trauma in your past doesn't show on your face. I mean, it can show in different ways. It can show in the way you believe the world functions around you. But it doesn't. Some people are always happy out there, and they might be even the people making everyone laugh, but they are the ones that suffer the most inside. So I'll give you just a quick example in my own story. In my last job, when I was in the corporate world, the last 2 years were a little bit difficult. And one day, I sat down in front of the boss. He didn't look like this, by the way, and all he started saying was triggering me. It was disrespectful. It was untrue. And I felt entirely frozen in that moment because the injustice of his statements about my performance or whatever I was doing were triggering a lot of things inside me. And when I get triggered, I usually get totally mute, like I can't speak up. So I was inside my own body thinking, this is the first thing that I want to do is slam the door and get out of this place. And in fact, what happened, what you see on the right-hand side is what happened that weekend is I tapped a lot. I do emotional freedom techniques. I tapped a lot to get rid of I got really stressed out the whole weekend. And that was not happening at that time. I had already worked on myself, so I was doing EFT quite often, and I was not triggered that much. But that one triggered me so much. And what it did is I transformed that energy into action. And I, decided that I would leave the company. I wrote in my journal, hey, I'll be fired by 3 months from now. And I decided to create my LLC. The LLC that I'm talking to you through right now was created back then. And then 3 months later, it actually happened. I was fired and I was like, yeah, awesome. Now I can do something and help other people. So anyway, so now that's what I do. I help people go from hardship to happy. And I have this whole image. Call myself a life transformation Sherpa because I like the analogy of the mountain, not because I'm a mountain climber. I'm not at all. But because mountain is a symbol of earth, and the earth element, the earth energy, is the energy of nurture, the energy of mother, the energy of feeding people. And so that's what my mission is to feed you with the insights and help you process whatever is going on with you so you can actually build a life that you really love. So that's where I am now. And my intention today for this particular workshop is twofold. One is showing you how to put that weight down. Whatever's been holding you back, there is a way to put it down. So we'll discuss that, and with the analogy of the Kintsugi, which I'll talk in a minute about. And the second component is then, once you have put the weight down, now you can take some steps to get back on track to your purpose, to your identity, to who you want to be, what you want to become, what you want to do, who you want to be with in your life. So we'll help you reconnect with your dreams today and reclaim a little bit of that clarity that's been missing so that you can trust yourself to take the next step. All right. So let's start with what's really going on. I said I wouldn't talk about trauma. I'm actually going to talk a little bit more about it. Hopefully not too much. One day when I realized this analogy with animals, it was so insightful for me. I wanted to share that with you. So there are videos out there on YouTube you can find about the gazelle being chased by the tiger or the panther or the lion. And sometimes those animals escape, and sometimes they escape by playing dead. Rabbits do that really well. Why do they play dead is very interesting, but I may talk about that a little later. What happens afterwards, if that gazelle has escaped for a reason or another, the lion got distracted by something else, that gazelle is going to go somewhere where it feels safe, and it's going to start shaking, the entire body shaking for minutes, maybe half an hour. And then once that's processed, like the whole trauma, the whole experience of being chased, almost died, it's processed through the body, then the gazelle is all happy again and is going to go back to eating grass. And that's what's interesting is we talk a lot about the flight-fight response. The frozen response is the most interesting one, I think. Because when you're in flight or when you're fighting, you're actually acting. You're in action mode. You're actually doing something. When we feel frozen, like stunned, is when the trauma basically crystallizes in our body. And then it stays there, and it can stay there for years and years and years. So what I'm here to explain is how trauma exists in the body and how to release it. Okay, so another real good insight I got as I was going through processing my own stuff is how we can define trauma, a trauma that stays in your body. And that's when the event itself, I call it the TAPU, T-A-P-U, the event itself has 4 characteristics. One is it was a threat to your life. And it doesn't have to be a real threat, by the way. It can be an imagined threat. It can be a virtual threat. Like when you watch a horror movie, if you like horror movies, I hate those, you get scared, right? You get scared, but you know, consciously, you know that you're sitting on your couch watching a movie, but you still get you get the fight-flight response sometimes, or even the frozen response watching a movie. That's because your brain doesn't make the unconscious brain doesn't make a distinction between a threat to your life, a real one, from a thought one. And so you're going to have the same response. You're going to sweat, your heartbeat is going to race. You're going to have the same body response as if you were in a real threat situation. So a threat to your life, whether real or not, is one key component of that trauma. The loneliness in that experience, you feel alone, you're not accompanied by anyone, there's no support, that you can reach out to. Or there might be support, but you can't reach out because you're in a frozen mode. So the feeling of being totally isolated. And then powerlessness is about your own capacity to fight is overwhelmed, and therefore you are in a frozen mode. Because when you go into a fight mode, you're not powerless. You're actually doing something. Powerlessness is when, as if you were tied down, with your body tied down physically, you don't have the capacity to fight back. So powerlessness is extremely important. But the fourth element is unexpectedness. And unexpectedness means if you went into a car accident, you didn't expect to have a car accident while entering your car. If you went into somebody was violent against you, it could be someone that you know, it could be a family member, so you wouldn't expect them to be violent towards you. So there's this unfairness kind of tied to the unexpectedness. When you have all these four together, threat, isolation, being overwhelmed and not being able to respond, and unexpectedness, that's when the trauma, that whole event gets crystallized in your body. The question is going to be, where is it? So this is just a reflection on, I used to talk a lot about life-altering events, but some people have life-altering events that are joyful. So really what I'm talking about is, accidents, major surgery. You lost your house, or you went through an earthquake, or you went through a violent event, shootings, or you lost somebody. All of these are what I'm talking about. So these are life-altering events that are traumatic, and trauma tends to be life-altering. So I already talked about this. The brain does not distinguish between perceived threat or actual threat. In fact, when you are in the situation, like if you watch a horror movie or you are in a horrific situation, your brain is going to trigger the same wavelength. The recording is going to show exactly the same pattern, which is quite interesting. So overall, what I have discovered going through this adventure for my own life is that trauma is overcomable. There is hope. And three things I want to share. One is, if you don't do anything about it, and you think by putting it under the rug, it might just go away, it won't go away. It goes worse over time. In fact, you might reach some milestones like 40 years old, 30 years old, 40, 50 years old, 60 years old, and then some things come back to you even more. However, it doesn't have to take years to process it. It doesn't. When I was processing my own stuff, it took me 5 decades to actually overcome it. But not because I tried for 5 decades, but because I tried plenty of things that didn't work, and it kept getting worse. And when I finally decided to do something about it and believed that I could do something about it, then I found emotional freedom techniques, and I cleared it in a matter of weeks or a few months, not more. So it doesn't have to take years. It certainly doesn't have to be there for the rest of your life, for sure. And then what I discovered with EFT, by learning EFT, is the issue is never the issue. So many people come to me with one thing at work, one issue with family, one issue with finances, or even issues with past events. But when we dig a little further down, I call this the archaeology of the mind. We dig softly, nicely, gently. We find root causes that seem to have nothing to do with the issue on hand. I found that fascinating. And that's a lot about how the brain functions. And then the third insight is you know, I was looking for support for myself for years. And one thing that was preventing me from getting support is that I thought, oh, I'm going to have to talk about what happened to me with a therapist or with a coach. And I'm not ready to talk about this. I don't want to talk about this to anybody. And then when I went through the certification for EFT, I was taught, well, you have gentle techniques. You don't need to know everything about what your client went through. You can actually help them without knowing anything about what happened to them. And I was like, what? Why no one told me that before? Seriously. So I'm telling you now, you don't need to talk about it. I have helped people to this day. I still don't know what the issue was, but they processed it. So that's what matters, right? What matters is not what I know about you. What matters is how you process your own stuff. So I'm here to guide, not to do it for you. Anyway, now we know what's really going on. What's really going on is something that we don't know. Something deep inside of us, maybe a part of us that was left behind. There's tons of things I could say about that. But we're going to go into the Kintsugi path so that you understand the analogy that I made. Kintsugi is an art in Japan. And that art is basically repairing ceramic with gold seams. Or, there's gold powder added to a very specific glue to repair the ceramics that have been broken. And it is a good metaphor for how we heal ourselves in ways that make us even more powerful and beautiful than before we were broken. So breaking is an analogy to the trauma. And then the repair is what we go through, and we're going to go through all these phases. Okay, so the 5 stages of Kintsugi. We start on the blue side, on the top right. That's when we are in a state of living the experience right now. We are in the threat, right? So when you are in the threat, just imagine you are in the middle of a car accident. Your car is actually tumbling in circles. There's nothing you can do, right? So it's a threat to your life. You're alone in the car. You don't know what's going to happen. It's unexpected because you didn't expect to have an accident. And you're powerless because you can't get out of the car in that moment. You're actually inside the car going up and down, and you don't know if you're going to survive that. So the question here is, what is happening to me? It's happening right now. And the state is a stage of victim because this is happening to you and there's nothing you can do about it. Usually the primary emotion is fear. And in terms of what you can do, you can't do anything. You are in inaction. That's why you can freeze. And actually, I wanted to share this. The freezing aspect is a way in the animal kingdom, but I'm pretty sure it works the same for humans. I won't try for demonstrating the evidence. When we freeze, there are some release of hormones in our body. We see that for animals that do 2 things. One is it mimics death. So it's like the animal faking death can be of less interest to a feline predator. And so they might survive that way. So it's a survival mechanism to not move at all. And the other purpose of it is to numb your body in case you get eaten. So it's a numbing effect as well that prevents you from feeling anything. And in fact, most of the people that have been in that frozen state know exactly what I'm talking about when I say you don't feel anything. You don't feel anything, no emotions. You disconnect a little bit from your body, you dissociate so that you don't feel the pain, you don't feel the harm, whatever's happening to you, but you also don't feel, you disconnect inside your brain as well, and you don't feel the emotions. So you may have the fear, but it actually, the fear can also kind of flip and turn off. So that situation is a 911 situation. You don't want to call a coach. You don't want to call a therapist. You want to get help, right? This is a situation where it's urgent. You want to get out of where you are now. So I told you the example of an accident, but the challenge is some people get into a victim situation for years sometimes. It's still a 911 situation, but they kind of go on and on and on and on, surviving into a victim situation. And that's really difficult. And that's not what I'm focusing on. Okay. So if there's any issue in your life right now where you are in that threat situation, please get some help. It might not be 911, but there are other organizations that can help. Okay. Then what happens? What happens is, okay, the car accident is done. The car has settled down. You're still inside the car. You have survived. The car is not on fire. No more threats, right? And maybe you got outside the car. Maybe you got out of the vehicle and you stand by the side of the road, still a bit stunned, right? And you just survived. You're a survivor. Congratulations. You got out of it. You're not in the threat anymore. But now you're like, what just happened? What happened to me? And sometimes it takes us time to even digest that information. I was in a car accident. What? That was not my plan for the day, right? It shifts everything. So usually we can get sad and depressed, but we can certainly get angry. Like, why did this happen? And that situation is like the stunnedness that I was talking about. It's like, what happened? What's going on in my life? Why is my lifeline interrupted suddenly, right? So you survived, and maybe some days have passed, some months have passed, some years have passed. And what do? You continue on with your life, right? And you become a thriver. You succeed, you go over things, you build a family, you have a very successful job. And there's still this thing that hasn't been processed in you. You know it. And the question here is, what must be fixed? There is something still broken in me, but I don't know exactly what it is. Because I should have, I survived this accident or this major surgery or this disease, and I should be back to normal. I don't feel normal. I'm thriving. I'm successful. I have built a family. I have built wealth. I have built, from the outside, you look great, right? Good, professional, successful. But you have something in you that is either ashamed or guilt and has grief. You have lost a part of you that you have not recovered, and it's not fixed, and you don't know what to do. That situation is, for some people might go into lawsuits at that stage. They might be like, well, I'm thriving right now, but I also need repair. I need compensation. I need to sue somebody. Somebody is, responsible for what happened to me. And then after that, some other people might go, I know I was a thriver for many, many years. Some other folks have a different way of handling this, and they become what I call advocates. They think what must be protected. So, okay, I can't fix me, but I can help others fix themselves, or I can help others not get into the same situation I was in. So a lot of coaches might be already advocates. they might still worry. They might worry still about a little bit about themselves, but they worry about other people. It's more looking outwardly and more about helping others. And that phase, that stage is all about action. And you know it when you see advocacy groups that get very, very active. That's what they do. They want to protect other people. They get into action, and that helps them cope. Basically, it's a coping mechanism. So at that stage, they're like superheroes, right? Superheroes, and you can stay in that stage as well for many years, and that's fine, by the way. However, what happens if you can actually transcend this? What if you can actually process that trauma, that past experience that you've had, and it doesn't affect you anymore? You can still remember it. You remember, oh yeah, this happened to me when I was a child. Oh, I got into this huge car accident and I survived it. What if when you think about it, when you talk about it, it doesn't affect you anymore? You just have a memory of it. That's what I call being Kintsugi. Being this beautiful vase that has been totally repaired and becomes almost transparent. So that's what I call the healer stage. And the healer is at peace. The healer can bring guidance. And the healer thinks, what can be prevented? It's a more holistic, higher altitude approach to the advocate. And that's what I wanted to share. And that's the 5 stages. And if you took the quiz, and if you didn't take the quiz, there's still a QR code at the end of this. If you took the quiz, you have a score that you can calculate. And so your score here tells you a little bit where you are. The reality is, if you take the quiz at different moments in your life, you might actually have different scores. And that's because when we go from broken to healer, it doesn't happen in a straight line. It's actually a very dynamic, iterative process. It's non-linear. And so I wanted to give you a few hints that can help you get moving and maybe help you get through that past experience, maybe reconcile the parts of you that have been separated. And stay kind to yourself, by the way. So one thing absolutely imperative in order to be able to shift things from what happened to you is know that it's possible. Know that trauma is overcomable. Because if you don't believe that, then you will never heal. You'll never put yourself in situations to be able to heal and overcome what happened. So know that it's possible and don't rely on someone else. It's okay to go to therapy, but as you know, therapy is your work. The therapist is not fixing you. You are. So know it's possible and find the modality that works for you. So in my experience, it was EFT. I tried therapy, didn't work. I was an MD. I had medical knowledge that didn't work at all. I did martial arts, intensive martial arts for many years. I did meditation. I did Reiki. I did Qigong. I did Reiki, I just said, Shiatsu. Some helped for a little bit of time, but if it's still there, crystallized in your body, it needs to be processed. So you need to find this modality that will work for you. And if you believe it's possible, it will start with your thought that it's possible, and then you will find the way to get the help. And it's okay to ask for help. I know it's not easy. I was in that space. I know it's not easy. Our nervous system is there to remind us that we have choices in life. And you can stay in survival mode and be in a state of sympathetic overdrive. The sympathetic nervous system is this part of the unconscious nervous system that gets you into the flight, fight, freeze response. That's the cat, right? The challenge is when you get too long into that state, then your body at some point gets overwhelmed, and that's when you start getting disease, including inflammatory diseases and cancer and diabetes and hypertension. And, you have the nutrition aspect of this, which is you overeat because you're compensating emotional gaps. And it's all a vicious circle. Or you can choose to be on the other side, right? On the dog side. Nothing wrong with cats. Cats do that too. But the parasympathetic nervous system, this opposite of sympathetic, is the one that you reach when you sleep, hopefully, if you sleep well. And you repair your body when you meditate, when you are in an intense, joyful activity. That's how we feel. And we want to feel more happy than unhappy. We want to have a good balance between the two. And yes, you can change your brain. You can change your connections. So what happens if you've been thinking the same thing over and over in your life? It's like as if you had created a path in a field and you are driving your tractor in that field on the same path every day for years and years and years. So the grooves inside the earth are going to be so deep, right? It will feel like it's impossible to get on another track or to change or to get outside that track. If you use the right modality, however, you will create a side track that will help you get the tractor off of its tracks. And once that's done, you don't go back. Once you have started changing your neural pathways inside your brain, you reconnect in a different direction and you basically change your own experience of the past experience you've had. And that I observe directly while doing EFT for myself and for other people. It's fabulous. So, hint number 2, find what works for you. And if you haven't tried EFT or EMDR, I would strongly suggest you try. I got introduced to EFT a lot earlier than I actually started it because I was like, oh, it's not going to work. This is like woo-woo stuff. It's weird. People tapping on their face. What is that? Like, why would you have to repeat and I love and accept myself? Horrible. Why? It's so awkward. But it works. It worked for me and it works for hundreds and thousands of people around the world every day. So why not try? If you've been stuck for decades, why not try? Right? I mean, it's just one more thing that you haven't tried yet. Okay. So you can find your path to your redemption. Okay? It is possible. You can believe it's possible and you can find what works for you. And the third piece is start creating habits. Start creating daily habits. If you are interested in creating daily habits, I have a tool in my membership in Basecamp. I call my membership Basecamp, where you have a little ebook to help you create those habits. The most important piece to understand with habits is create habits that make you happy. Create habits that bring you joy as you're doing them. How many times have you, okay, I don't like going to the gym. So if you don't like going to the gym, for example, how many times have you convinced yourself that this is exactly what you need to do? You need to go to the gym three days a week. How many times have you tried that and then abandoned it? Because you don't like going to the gym. If it's not joyful, it's not going to help you. Because what's going to happen is the first time you're not going to go to the gym, you're going to beat yourself up. And what happens when you beat yourself up? You increase your adrenaline. You get yourself into sympathetic mode. You're not kind to yourself. You're creating hormone release in your body that keep you feeling guilty, eat more, get more weight, and then it gets into this vicious circle. You don't want to go back. So find habits that bring you joy. And I have a whole new module in the future that will talk about that. But in Basecamp, I have a mini course that is actually not that mini. It's 3 hours long. And one of the modules is about creating habits and a little bit about tapping too. So if you want to learn about tapping, that's good. So now we have, and I apologize, it's been a lot of downward, me talking and you listening, but we're going to go a little bit more interactive now. So chapter 1, something has been holding you back for years. And the first thing to do is to put the weight down. Because there's a lot of things about manifestation out there in social media, in the public domain. And I watched those for many years and I was like, yeah, sure. You're telling me, oh, you just need to think this way. And then you're going to have a better life. And then you repeat sentences, you do meditation, you do this, you do that, and nothing happens. Well, why? Because you're still carrying the weight. You're carrying a huge backpack and somebody's telling you, just look at how you can be feeling light on top of the mountain. And you're like, but I'm carrying the backpack. And it's heavy every day. I can't even look up to the top of the mountain. What are you talking about? That was my case for a long time. I was listening to these manifestation gurus and I was like, yeah, right. Either it's not for me, or I don't know why, but I'm not ready, or I'm just not lucky that way. It's not for me, period. It is for you, but you have to put the weight down first. So what I do, and I'll talk about it a little bit later, is I do both. I help you put the weight down while manifesting your life. Anyway, so let's talk about the 3 first steps of dream building. 3 steps to get back on your track, on your path. Find your own path. So we'll talk about reconnecting to your dreams. And I'll have you experience that a little bit. You'll reclaim that clarity. And by the end of this workshop, you will trust yourself to take a next step. The pain of a problem, for example, where your life is at right now, and the burning desire for something new, like a dream you've had for a long, long time, the longing that you haven't realized yet. Those 2 are actually essential to creating those results that you want. So it's actually a good thing. You just need to be aware of it and state it out loud. So that's what we're going to do today. Have you ever achieved a dream in your life? I mean, who would not have, right? Or achieved a goal, at least, if it's not a dream. Maybe you got a job that you've always wanted, or you moved to another country, or you decided to climb a mountain, or you decided to go go discover the Himalayas. Whatever that was, when you started it, when you started thinking about it, did you know how you would achieve it? Did you have any idea how you would do it? So I'll give you an example. When I was a teenager, I decided that one day, I was brought in France. I decided that one day I would come to the United States. And when I was 16 thinking that, I was like, I have no idea how I'm going to do that. Because before you make that decision, you have no idea how you're going to do it. So think about where you are now. And whatever dream you're going to dream today in this workshop, you will not know how to get there. And that's okay. I don't want you to figure out the how. In fact, I want you to put the how in the parking lot. realize that you are far more capable than you know. Because if you go back to that example of a goal you have achieved and you didn't know how, you still achieved the goal. But when you decided to achieve that goal, you didn't think you were capable of it. You didn't have the tools, you didn't know how, but you did it. This orchid is an actual true photo that I took in my kitchen. That orchid had been neglected for months. I don't even know why I kept it. I kept basically an empty pot of dirt on my kitchen table for months with a stick coming out because it was the stick holding the original orchid. And one day it flourished again. And I was like, what? That gives you an idea of the power of the universe. The power of this universe that we live inside together with that flower and with everything that keeps growing and expanding. Our life is ever expanding, ever seeking for better. So you have the pain and you have the aspiration. You have this discontent in your life and you have the longing. Those are those two energies that we want to have in order to shift, in order to get into motion. So today, you're going to have to make a decision. Do you want to create results in your life? Do you want to continue creating them by default, like status quo, and continue your life as you have done it before and have the same kind of results? Or do you want to design it? Do you want to be the architect of your life? Do you want to be active in deciding who you want to be, what you want to do, what do you want to have, who you want to be with? So deciding for these results means that you establish where you are now and you establish what you would love to have and you let the how on the side. We're going to do both today. We're going to do an assessment of within 4 domains of life of where you are today. So in health and well-being, in love and relationships, in vocation, what do you produce to the world, whether it's your job or your passion, and in terms of time and money freedom. So we'll do that assessment in a minute. But just as a overarching thought here, is there an area of your life you already know that you would like to improve? In these 4, when you look at them, you probably already pointed one thinking, yeah, I need some work there. Maybe it's all 4 of them, but they are also interrelated. So we want to start with one. So anyway, let's look at, that assessment. And as we do this exercise, I like this quote that says, don't ask yourself what the world needs. In other words, when you do those exercises that we're going to do today, don't think about what people think of you. Don't think about what people expect of you. Don't even think about what you expect of you. Ask yourself what makes you come alive. That's the key. What would you love? And then go do that. Because that's what the world needs. More people coming alive. All right. So before we go into the assessment, I will also share 2 major concepts. One is how our thoughts lead to our results. When you think about something, imagine you're thinking, I lost my keys. I don't know where the car keys are, and I have a meeting and I need to go. And you go into threat mode, right? You get threatened. It's not a real threat to your life, but it's threatening because if you're late, maybe you lose your job, and you get into all this stuff in your head. So you misplace the keys and you think, right? So that feels bad. You feel anxious. Your heart rate goes up. You're frantic. You're moving around the house and trying to lift all the cushions and stuff. You don't know what's going to happen. What happens when you have those feelings? You can't think anymore. Right? It bypasses the consciousness. So you're thinking, oh, something's happening. You're feeling stressed out. And as a result, you frantically go about and you don't find your keys. As a result, you might be late. That's your results, right? What if suddenly you say, okay, let's calm down. Let's go back to where I was. What did I do? Oh, yeah, I came out of the car. I had my car keys with me, so they must be in the house somewhere. And then you just retrace a little bit and you know, oh, I did go to the basement, right? For example. And you go downstairs, so you thought, hey, I'm going to find my keys. And then you're more rational. You're not feeling all frantic anymore. And you take action. You go downstairs in the basement, you found the keys right there on the laundry table. And now you have a result, which is you have your keys, you can go back to your meeting and be on time. It's a very trivial example, but you can take that example in much more severe examples, right? So our thoughts are what create our results ultimately. So when you do the exercise today and look at your results of today in those 4 domains of life, remember that your thoughts have led to those results. And an important thing to know about thoughts is that 90% of those thoughts are not conscious. 90% of your thoughts and the decisions you make every day are unconscious. So when you have results that you don't like today, some of it is unconscious, and you might say, so it's not my fault, since it was not conscious thoughts. It's just happening to me. However, and that's why concept number 2 is here for. Notice what you're noticing. You can raise your self-awareness into your thoughts so that they don't direct your life, but you have more choice, conscious choice. Notice what you're noticing is about, I'll give you a little exercise to do right now. It's about feeling where you are with your body and where you are with your thoughts in real time. So if I invite you, if you're listening to this, to put your 2 feet on the ground and connect with the earth, and hopefully you're sitting in a comfortable position and you can feel the weight of your body on the seat. I invite you to close your eyes and just take a few deep breaths in and out, and imagine you breathing through your heart. Breathing in through your heart, breathing out through your heart. Deep breath in, exhale. And now I invite you to notice what your eyes are seeing. Behind your eyelids, maybe you're seeing some shapes, some colors, the light coming from the sun or from a lamp. Through your eyelids, you see the light. I invite you to switch to your ears and pay attention to what you're hearing. My voice, a hum of the computer, the cars passing by in the street, a bird singing outside the window. I invite you to focus on your taste. Maybe you ate something earlier or drank some coffee, and you can feel that taste in your mouth. Breathing in and out slowly through your heart. Do you smell anything? Do you smell food being cooked in the kitchen, or flowers coming from the yard? And I invite you to connect with your skin. What are you feeling? The weight of your clothes on your body, the s- the fabric, the texture, the weight, maybe the wind on your face. And then feel your entire body and its weight on the seat where you are. The connection with the earth. And how the universe can all go and bring that energy through your head. And I invite you to wiggle your toes and your fingers and just open your eyes again. This little adventure into the body is noticing what you're noticing in your body. You can notice and do the same thing with your thoughts. So, as we go through a life assessment, I would like to invite you to take a piece of paper, write down health and well being, and start looking at what are your results today in your life. 3 bullets, 4 bullets, maybe. I'll give you 1 minute. So, what is your health today? How do you feel mentally, emotionally? Maybe you have a health condition and you would like to get rid of it. Or maybe you're healthy, but you want to be more strong and leaner, maybe. Or you have some mental health issues. Maybe you're taking medications and you don't want to take medications. All right, so that was a minute. Now let's turn one brand new page and look at love and relationships. And I'll give you another minute for love and relationships. Maybe you are a family member, maybe you have a family, maybe you have a spouse and kids, and maybe it's all going really well, but you would love that relationship to go even one step further. Or maybe it's not going well and you would love to fix things. Or you are not in a relationship but would love to be in a relationship. 3 or 4 bullets just to summarize your results of today. And as you do it, notice what you're noticing. Are you angry? Are you resentful? Are you sad? Okay, so that was 1 minute. Now take another page and write down vocation. Vocation is about, could be your job, if you like your job, or it could be activities that you do for helping others. Maybe you're volunteering. It's how you represent yourself in the world and what are you contributing to. And write a few bullets on that. Your results of today, good or bad. It's not about judgment. You're not trying to be harsh on yourself. You just want to know as it is. Just recognize how things are. And for the last one, take another piece of paper and write down time and money freedom. What does it look like today in your life? Maybe you have both. Maybe you have great income and lots of time on hand and you're really happy and don't need anything. But there's always something else we like. There's always something else we can dream about. Just because you're in a state of happiness doesn't mean you can't be more happy or do something else in your life. But maybe you have money, you have a good job, and you don't have the time because your job is taking all the time and you would love to spend more time with your kids. Or you would love to go on a trip and you haven't been able to take vacation for 3 or 5 years. And maybe you have plenty of time, but you have no money because you don't have a job right now and you're looking. Things are tough. All right, so that was a minute as well. Now look at those 4 pages, those 4 assessments. You have probably a dozen of bullet points here as to where your life is right now. Give yourself a rating for each of those on a scale of 1 to 5 for each of those. 1 being, it is not the results I want. I definitely want to change this. To 5 is, that's exactly, I'm like happy with that domain of my life. I don't need anything more. It's perfect. So you gave yourself a rating from 1 to 5. And then I have 2 questions for you. The first question is, well, look at the lowest rating, you know, the domain of your life where you're not happy. It's maybe a 1 or 2 or 3. Everything else is fine. Just pick one. And then the question is, how long has it been that way? How long? Maybe it's been a few months, maybe just a few weeks, or maybe it's been decades. How many years? 20 years? 30 years? If you're a younger person, 5 years? 5 years is a long time. How long has it been this way? And the second question is, at what cost? What has that cost you to be in that state of unhappiness for that long? It's not about money. What does it cost you? It could cost you emotionally, physically. You could get sick. You could have mental health issues. You could, it could impact your finances. It could impact your plans for later, for retirement. What is the cost? Your business not running. What's going on? So now, congratulations. You have done an assessment of where you are now. You understand that your thoughts, whether conscious or not, have actually led to those results. The results you have today, the ones you're not happy with. And now you're starting noticing what you're noticing. You're looking at those results and you start feeling some pain, some emotions, and you're like, instead of having those emotions lead you, you can take a little bit of altitude and look over them and think, I noticed that I'm feeling this way. So you did the life assessment, and now we're going to review the 3 steps, because now you have a little bit more awareness of where you are now. Let's look at where you want to be. Step number 1, we want to design a dream. Design your dream, your path, where you want to be. And in order to do that, imagine your dream was a dream house. And you go to a builder and you say, hey, can you build my dream house? What is the builder going to say? Okay, it's going to say, did you talk to the architect? Do you have a floor map? Do you know where? Do you know which orientation? Do you know how many floors? Do you know what materials? Do you know how many windows? Do you know how many walls? Do you know how many outlets on the wall? Do you know what height of windows? It's going to ask you for details. And in fact, either you're the architect of your life or you hire an architect to help you out. They're going to ask those questions. You have to ask those questions. You have to have clarity, because clarity is power. The details you're going to bring into your dream are powerful. And the less detail you bring into a dream, the less likely the dream will happen, because it's not clear what needs to happen. In order for something to be clear and happen, it needs to be detailed. So I'm going to invite you to do a time machine. The time machine is the following. You're going to stand up and do 3 turns on yourself. 1 for each year, 1 for each year, 2 years, 3 years, and now it's 3 years from now, and oh, everything has worked out. Everything has worked out, and I invite you to maybe even close your eyes, since you're not even looking at me right now, and say, oh, everything has worked out exactly like I thought, like I wanted to. Leave the how on the side and say, I am so happy and grateful now that I'm doing this. I am in this area. I am with that person or that other person. Imagine all 4 domains of your life now as if everything has happened and what you would love in your life is all here now. So it is June 3rd, 2029. Close your eyes and just think about all the things that are happening in your life right now with as many details as you can, and speak to yourself in present tense, because it's there already. You are in that scene. Put yourself in that future and just think about all the things that are happening. What are you wearing? What are the colors around you? Where are you? Describe the room where you are. What are you doing? Describe exactly what's going on. And how do you feel about it? So I'll give you an example. As I want you to continue to dream, we're going to do that for 3 minutes. Imagine someone who has always wanted to write a book. And finally, 3 years from now, the book just came out. So hear what it would sound like. Beatrice, I'm so happy to see you. And guess what happened in the last 3 years? I am so happy and grateful now that I have just literally published my book. It took me at least 2 years to write it and then to find all the ways to publish it, but now it's there. And I'm launching today. I am going to Barnes & Noble to sign at the table my new copy of the book. And I'm wearing my favorite blue dress, or my blue suit, doesn't have to be a woman. And I'm entering the store and I see all these smiles of people welcoming me and congratulating me. And the table is waiting for me right there. And I sit at the table and I have all this line of people waiting for me to sign it for them. And somebody brings me a cup of tea and I can see the nice little cup. It might be a paper cup, but anyway. And it's a beautiful day today. I see the sunlight through the big bay windows over there. And I have these little kids that are walking around, playing around, because it's in the kids area that they put the table to sign. And I see myself with my most favorite pen, signing the first book that somebody brings to me. And I hear their voice and I hear that they're happy and they're ecstatic with this book. And they ask me to sign for their daughter. And I'm so happy to be able to write these few words that I have created for my dedicates, and I'm signing the book. And I feel so joyful that I can help people change their life with my message. Okay, so that was an example. I hope you had some time to dream that future of your life. And so hopefully you answered that question, what would you love? And you started with, I'm so happy and grateful now that. Maybe now you can open your eyes, take a piece of paper and write down a little bit of that life. I'm so happy and grateful now that I'm doing this, I'm having that. I just completed this. Everything has worked out. And I feel so happy, and I feel this, I feel that. I'm wearing this, I'm wearing that. I'm doing this. I'm with my spouse, my partner, my new partner. Whatever is in that scene of your life. And once you have written a few words, I'll give you another 30 seconds. Then you want to add an important sentence at the end. And that is this or something even greater still. This or something even greater still. Because that's the dream you have imagined right now, but it will continue to evolve and the universe will be there and meet you there. And it might bring you even more good stuff than you ever thought. So, we have designed the dream. That's step number 1. And by the way, these are the real steps of the Dream Builder program that I teach in my expeditions. Check. Done. Design the dream. You have a good idea of what it looks like. What do we do next? Haha. We have to decide for that dream. Because that dream was just thought about. But it's not going to happen just because you thought of it. You need to decide for it. And again, you just thought about a dream, and maybe now that you're back on Earth, landing after those 3 years into the future, remember when I said you achieved something before, but you didn't know the how? Well, it's the same that's going to happen now. That question, how? How? You want to put it on the side. You don't want to think about that. In fact, the only thing you want to do is to decide. Decide that that's really what you want to do. That's really your life in the next 3 years. And that's a condition for it to happen. You need to decide for it. Decisions influence your results because decisions influence your thoughts. Remember to suspend the how. So, step number 1, we design the dream as detailed, as with clarity as possible. And then we decide, yes, this is what I want. And in the Dream Builder program, we actually have tools to test the dream, to make sure the dream is worthy of you. Not you worthy of it, but the dream is worthy of you. And then what we want to do is defend this dream. Now, this dream is like the rose of the prince, of the little prince. Maybe it's like a little blade of grass in the field of your mind. But it's a tiny thing right now. You just thought about it. It just started to grow out of the field of your mind. And what's going to happen is, like the little prince, there's going to be baobabs. There's going to be threats. There's going to be thoughts of fear, of doubt, of self-sabotage that is going to come back again and again to prevent you from living that dream, from achieving it, from moving into it. So we want to protect it because you might have felt with a time machine, yeah, this is what I want. But then didn't you feel something like, what's going to happen? How do I do it? All these questions that may come up. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. It's not the right time. Maybe I'm going to retire first and my kids need me. Now I don't have what it takes. And how am I going to do this? Or just like, yeah, sure. If you heard that, it's normal to hear that. That's what we call paradigms. Paradigms are all these self-talk, negative self-talk that are not productive. And why do we have them? Because your brain, your subconscious doesn't want change. Inherently, it doesn't. So it's going to use the paradigms to pull you back. And that's what you've been feeling. That's why you're listening to this. Okay, so one way it can do that is by dissuading you, by delaying things. You go, you come back from work and you're like, oh, I'm going to come back home and then I'm going to start working on my project. And then you come home and you're like, but I could do it tomorrow. Or, well, I could probably watch a show before I start working on this. And then this dissuasion. Dissuasion is like, oh, but I have more important things to do. And maybe that dream is not for me anyway. Right? And the third one is DEFCON. It's like, well, it's not meant for me anyway. And it's too scary. And I thought it was the right dream, but it's probably not the right dream. Like, you just discard it. And you get into panic. You're like, oh, I can't do it. I don't know how. Right? So these paradigms will happen. It's not whether they will happen, it's when. And usually, I bet you it already happened in this workshop as we talk about the dream. Why is that good news? That's good news because those feelings prove that you are on the path to change. And so what you want to do is understand that those paradigms are actually a normal part of the process. And when you feel them, you don't want them to dissuade you, to prevent you from doing it. You want them to fuel you. Because fear and failure are prerequisites for success. And we all live that when we learn to walk. We all failed at walking for days before we succeeded. And no one of us stayed down after falling and said, oh, I'm not meant for this. But isn't that what you're telling yourself for the dream that you just thought about? I'm not meant for this. But the way you walked is by continuing to think, I'm meant for this and I'm going to do it. So failure after failure after failure is success. Failure, the real failure, is when you stop trying. And all these examples are people who kept trying. And they are in our life as very public figures because they kept trying. They failed and failed and failed, and they kept trying. They had a dream, and they defended it. So defending your dream means part of you wants to go forward, a part of you is really scared, right? And there's this fear in the middle, and you want to say, nope, fear, not today. Not today. So when you have that fear, what you want to do is take a deep breath in. Go back to the question, what would I love? Do a time machine. And then take action. And I'm going to ask you to take action today. I'm not going to nudge you and invite you to take action. I'm going to ask you to decide for this dream and take action. What is one thing that you could do right after this workshop at 2 p.m., maybe 2:05, I might be late, today, that would be one little step in the direction of your dream? Just write it down right now. And go do it. So 3 steps to going back on your path is design your dream, decide for your dream, and defend it, tooth and nails. That is what I wanted to teach you today. And that is why I have this program, this suite of things to offer you to help you put the baggage down with potential EFT tapping sessions, and then join Basecamp to learn more about all these tools and the habits and the journaling and the tapping and the envisioning. This workshop is going to be there. The recording will be there. in Basecamp and invite you to join on an expedition later on when you're ready. The expedition is a 12-week coaching program. It's a small group of 6 people max that I bring personally on a weekly basis with live training for 12 weeks. And this is some of the things people have experienced through expedition. So I invite you to take a step after this workshop. And one of these steps could be, this is my part of the group that I had last time at the expedition. Dream achieved. Take one step. And this is the gift that I promised you. For the people, only for the people who are live on Google Meet. Everyone who's watching this or the recording on stream on LinkedIn or Facebook will not have this. So next time you want it, come to the next workshop. You can either start with just scheduling a strategy session with me. I'm not going to sell you anything. It's just discussing where you are now, where you want to be, and what I would propose and advise you could do. Whether we work together or not, I will give you my best. So that's a free session you can schedule. Or you can explore and join Basecamp. And the gift for you today is that you have a month free. If you were in the Google Meet today, you have a month free to explore Basecamp. And after that, it's $108 a month. So I wish to see you there. And I just want to share one last story. I don't know why these images are not in order. One little story to demonstrate. And I know we're at time, but if you are interested in listening, I'll just tell you the story of the miso. How things fall into place when you decide for the dream. I was in the corporate world, and we had met a good friend, a person who became a friend, Jin, who was a plant-based cook and coach, health coach, and he was Japanese. And I'm fascinated by Japan. I love the Japanese culture. And one day we decided to have Jin come over to our house and teach us how to make miso. And we make the miso paste ourselves with koji and rice and with our hands. And we made a huge batch of miso. And then he blessed the miso. We put it on a shelf and let it mature for a couple of years. He said to not touch the first one until at least a year, I think. And then over the years, we saw the miso get darker and darker, and the taste became even more fragrant. It was absolutely fabulous to make our own miso. And one day, 4 years later, I learned about Jin passing. Very young. He had gone to Japan for the first time in years, see his mom, and he actually fell sick and died a couple of weeks later. I was not able to go to the funeral in Japan. I was not able to go to the funeral in New York City. So I never got to meet his mom. But one day, as the jars of miso were dwindling down on the shelf, I kept thinking about her. And one day I took the last jar and I said, I don't know how, but I want to bring that jar to Jin's mom. So you're free to leave now. It's 2 p.m. It's been 90 minutes of talking, but I will continue the story. So the decision was basically to bring a jar of miso to a lady in Japan that I didn't know where she lived, whether she spoke English. I had pretty much no information about her except one email. At the time, I was, as I said, in the corporate world. When I decided to do this, and I felt really in my heart, this is what I really want to do. I have no idea how, but I'm going to do this. Then started a series of things, of events, a series that led me to bring that last jar to a lady in the middle of Japan, not Tokyo, with no friction at all. And basically, I will give you like a list of all the things that happened. One is for my job, a trip was planned for Japan. except that I was going through China. And miso is live food. You don't want to bring miso into China before going to Japan. I talked to a colleague, a Japanese colleague of mine, and she said, you know what, I'm going to Japan. I'll take your miso directly to Tokyo so you don't have to bring it through customs and potentially lose it to China customs. So she volunteered that. She said, I'll put it in the fridge in the office back in Tokyo. You'll find it. Then I didn't know how to contact Jin's mom. And a colleague of mine in Japan as well said, it's okay, I'll call her. I'll explain the situation. I know what you want to do. I'll explain it. So he emailed or called her, got her address, and he told me where she was. And I was like, well, that's not in Tokyo. I have no idea where that is. And he said, well, actually, the same time you're going to be in Tokyo that weekend when you're not working, I'll be in the city where she lives because I have a symposium there. And I was like, what? He said, yeah. So basically, the only thing you need to do is take a flight from Tokyo to that place, and I'll pick you up at the airport. Okay. And this friend drove me to Jin's house, to Jin's mom's house, introduced me in Japanese, did all the translation because she did not speak English at all. And I spent 4 hours with her. But when I came into her house and my friend explained what I was doing, I handed over to her that jar of miso that I have found in the fridge of the Japanese office, and that was still intact after all this travel. And that was such a symbol of the last miso her son made before he died. And the funniest thing is that she looked at me, she looked at the jar, she took the jar, she opened the jar, and she put her finger in it and tasted the miso right there. No shame. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's the last thing I was expecting. And it was so beautiful. And she said it was actually, she was like, yeah, it's not too bad. It's almost like, because she makes miso herself. She knows exactly what her son was doing. She would not have shown in the Japanese culture any, being impressed or anything like that. But the fact that she actually tasted the miso was so beautiful. And yeah, and then she ordered sushi and we spent 2 hours. My friend had to leave. We spent 2 hours in body language, exchanging, watching the funeral on her TV, on the recording, and crying together and eating together. And it was fabulous. So this was to tell you that when I had that thought of bringing the miso to Japan, I had no clue how it would happen, but I was so strong on my decision that everything folded into place. All the stars aligned. As I said, it was frictionless. And that's how you can conduct your life. That's how you can change your life. Since then and before that, I have manifested so many things in my life. And I just gave you a couple of examples. But that's what I do, and that's what I help you do. So I hope you enjoy this, and I'll see you on the other side.